Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm David from Resource, and I'll be talking about endogenous stablecoins today. So I'm going to start off with a bold claim that there is not really true native money on the blockchain yet. And you'll see why this is not an entirely fabricated claim. So it's a bit of an odd claim because the way that blockchain was introduced through the world was through Bitcoin, which was designed as a peer-to-peer electronic money system. No doubt the Bitcoin blockchain has caused breakthroughs that are novel and innovative. It's also birthed a class of surprisingly rich nerds and a new industry and a new asset class. But the one thing it was designed to be, money, a medium of exchange, an alternative to state-sanctioned existing forms of money, in some ways it is. It's fungible, it's durable, it's portable. It's certainly not stable. Stability is one of the kind of key principles of the definition of money. So how is crypto doing in general? Bitcoin, Ethereum, these are really exciting assets, in part because they're not money, because they're not stable, because we get excited when they increase in value. Normally, these are assets that we buy and hold, whether we're able to talk about it or not, because of their potential to appreciate in value. So they're not really something that we use as a medium of exchange to spend and earn and make a living. Okay, there might be some diehard devs that take their payment in ETH, but I don't know any landlords that take ETH yet as a rent payment. So personally, I've actually spent what is now hundreds of dollars on a cup of coffee. This was back in maybe 2015 when I wanted to prove a point to some friends that Bitcoin was money and you could use it to buy things in the real world. Another friend of mine was telling me, like, stop doing that, don't ever spend Bitcoin, it's a really bad idea. But I was trying to make a point, So I don't have any regrets, but if I spent about, a couple $100 million on pizza, I think I would regret that, and I don't think I would ever use Bitcoin as money again. So when talking about crypto as a means of payment, and these monetary functions such as the pricing of goods, services, labor, and capital, usually we revert to the best thing that we have at hand, which is fiat money, fiat currencies. Even in this industry, even in the crypto industry, most things are denominated in US dollars, wrapped in a cryptographic container, which we call now a stablecoin. The thing about stablecoins, collateralized, algorithmic, they're not stable in the absolute sense. They're stable relative to an external peg, which in most cases is the dollar, maybe the euro. In essence, they're the extension of fiat central bank monetary policy into crypto markets, which we're all kind of propagating in a sense. This is so even in the case of stablecoins such as DAI. They're algorithmically controlled crypto collateralized assets that mimic the behavior of fiat money. So maybe some of you would be much more comfortable entering into, let's say, a 5-year contract denominated in DAI as opposed to Dogecoin. But still, DAI is pegged to the US dollar for now. And that makes it not an independent market or an endogenous or a native market to the internet. So here's the $3 trillion question. What would native internet money look like? Can we imagine a form of money that is neither pegged to fiat or arbitrary goods such as gold, but would allow us still to price things, to make long-term commitments and contracts, and predict future costs and have things like futures markets? Can we think of a form of money that we would happily enter into a 5-year contract without using fiat as a reference? To answer these questions, let's try to redefine stability. Instead of treating stability as an arbitrary relationship between abstract numbers, which is how investors think, let's try to think the way that normal people think, which is what can I do with this money? How many hours do I need to work to pay rent this month? If I want a new laptop, what's it going to cost me? How much do I need to put in? Will the value of my savings be the same this week as next week? Do the things that I want, are they going to become more scarce over time? If we think like this, we'll soon discover that money as a medium of exchange isn't really an asset in the tangible sense. Rather, it is an entry into a ledger, tracking human activity and the availability of resources in a given moment. And thinking like that, we're actually not the first ones that would be thinking this way. Before gold, before most forms of currency, they found these artifacts dating back 40,000 years at the very beginning of human language, human exchange. They're called Tallysticks. They've been in use for millennia to track all types of relationships, essentially debt obligations, mutual obligations between two parties. A piece of wood was broken into two pieces, and when they come back together, they form one piece. This is the first ledger in human history. Basically, it was used to record debt. Not so much financial debt as we think about today, but a more primitive form of debt that we can think of like time-delayed barter, or barter transcending time and space. I'll give you an animal from my farm today, and you can give me a few bags of rice a few months from now. So, Tallysticks were first made popular by King Henry of Britain, but as I mentioned, they've been dated back to more than 40,000 years old, which kind of shocked me as I was doing the research to prepare. So, money is just barter transcending space-time. The moment that these Tallysticks became tradable, for example, the owner of a farm could pay the worker with a notch on a Tallystick instead of with a bag of wheat, and then the worker could go take that Tallystick to the bakery to get fresh bread the same day, a week later, etc., even if the baker didn't need what the farm owner had. So now we're talking about multilateral barter that's asynchronous, not in one moment and not between two parties. The tracking of mutual obligations made it so that value could be produced in one moment in space-time and then consumed at a later stage, or the teleportation of value. What's interesting here is the amount of these Tallysticks that were in circulation. It's not constant, it's not scarce, nor is it unlimited. Rather, it expands and contracts based on the real state of the economy. It's a type of state machine. So, notch Tallysticks were created when work was being done, and they would be destroyed when redeemed. So they come into circulation and come out of circulation as value circulates. So in theory, this is an elastic money supply that expands, contracts, and adjusts itself based on the value in reality in real time. This is what some economists call an endogenous money supply, arising from within the system rather than being imposed from outside the system. So one of the questions that we ask ourselves at the Resource Protocol is how could this method of endogenous money be ported onto a blockchain to create money that's truly endogenous to the internet and not reliant on external pegs or external economies that are outside of this kind of native ecosystem that we're building. So something that came up in our research that we think answers many of these questions is an old monetary system that is still in use in many parts of the world called mutual credit. You may have heard of it as barter networks or business-to-business trade networks or peer-to-peer cashless networks. But as I mentioned, these networks have been around for 40,000 years since the beginning of money, and they often arise in countries with very poor central fiat currency systems. So you have them in Argentina, you have them in Lebanon, you have them in many places around the world today. There's many trade networks in the US as well. To my knowledge, almost none of them are leveraging blockchain technology. So just like Tallysticks, mutual credit is money that is created when it's spent into existence. So in this example, we have a farmer and a farm. And the farmer provides their harvest to the farm and receives 20 resource dollars as a payment. Resource dollars are, as far as we know, the first stablecoin that enables on-chain negative balance accounts. Up until now, the ERC20 standard used by most stablecoins only enables balances of 0 or higher, which doesn't permit the existence of mutual credit systems on chain. So we had to develop a new token standard for specific type of stablecoin, mutual credit stablecoins. And we have the first stablecoin that enables, actually I'll ask you guys, has anyone ever seen another token or cryptocurrency that you can hold an on-chain balance below 0? Okay, I've been asking this question for a while, so we might or might not be the first one. That's a good question. Let's talk about it in a bit. So we've created a stablecoin that, just like Tallysticks, are backed by the things that are traded with it. If you're creditworthy, you can get access to a credit line, and you can spend into negative balance. Spend money into existence, issue credit as a business or a freelancer or a sole proprietor as you need it, and then that credit is destroyed or the circulation contracts when someone comes to you, anyone from the network, anyone from the resource network, which is a closed membership network, and then your balance goes back to 0 as you provide products and services to the network. In a sense, the RUSD, or the resource dollar, can be redeemed against all goods and services currently offered on the resource market. So, addressing the question of, do we want to allow balances below 0? You might say, going back to the Tallysticks example, they only had value because someone, in the case of the example, the owner of the farm, was obligated to accept them as a form of payment. And of course, the same is true for resource dollar. The circulating supply of resource dollars maintains its value because someone, somewhere, has a corresponding debt that needs to be paid in RUSD. In our cases, these debts are legal obligations, and they can be transferred to a debt collector for US dollars in the case of a default. So yes, you do need a functioning government or a functioning obligation system to make this work. So how do you pull this off in a decentralized environment? How do you get people to pay their debts? Or how do you even assess creditworthiness to begin with? So to answer these questions, we have built the resource protocol. That would really require its own presentation to go into. I'm happy to talk about it outside, but I'll just give you the really, really short, concise version. So underwriting, risk assessment, risk assumption, and risk management are achieved by a distributed network of competing underwriters on an open market with staking mechanisms in another token, a collateral token, and reserve pools to cover defaults. While the enforcement of obligations and defaults are transferred to a secondary debt market where defaulting accounts are auctioned off to the highest bidder without the protocol or the resource DAO ever having to directly interface with court systems. While the mechanics of endogenous stablecoins are fascinating, what's much more interesting is that they've already allowed us to issue over $1 million of interest-free credit, which our users have used to pay payroll for employees, purchase basic goods such as food, and access to healthcare. Note that not a single dollar of US dollar currency was actually lent. This is interest-free debt endogenously created from network activity. The value is created as it's spent into existence, just like the Tallysticks from 40,000 years ago. The best part is that you don't need to trust our network, the resource network, which is the first mutual credit network built on the protocol. You can create your own. You can design your own underwriting scheme, your own risk management scheme, or you can tap our network of underwriters. The resource protocol can be used by anyone, anywhere in any jurisdiction, any supply chain, any industry, any city, to create their own endogenous stablecoins and serve their own circular economies. So thank you for listening. I'm David from Resource.